I miss the desert. And I miss waking up every morning, wondering what wonderful adventure the new day will bring to us.
Those days have come and gone.
Perhaps. Perhaps not.
Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny is the 5th Indiana Jones movie, coming 15 years after Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and is directed by James Mangold. Accompanied by his goddaughter, archaeologist Indiana Jones races against time to retrieve a legendary artifact that can change the course of history before it falls into the hands of a former enemy. I have no problem saying Indiana Jones might be my favorite franchise of all time. Not only is Raiders of the Lost Ark one of the best films I've ever seen, and one of the films that got me into filmmaking in the first place, but on top of that, I have not disliked a single Indiana Jones film. I thought Temple of Doom was great, The Last Crusade almost surpassed the original movie for me, and I even have a soft spot for Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. But even as a mega fan of this franchise, I was a little skeptical when a 5th film was announced. Crystal Skull felt like a proper conclusion to Indy's story, and with Disney not handling Star Wars all that well recently, I didn't know if they would be able to recreate another Lucasfilm franchise, especially since Spielberg was not returning to direct. That was until I heard James Mangold would be the one filling in the director's chair. I love this man's work. Ford vs. Ferrari, Logan, these are fantastic films, and I would even consider Mangold one of the best filmmakers working today. If someone was going to take over for Spielberg, I think he was the best choice. And while I don't think Dial of Destiny works as well as a conclusion as Crystal Skull did, nor would I call it better than the 4 original films, I had a great time watching this movie. It's not perfect, far from it actually, but it's so much fun and pretty much everything I could ask for from a sincere epilogue to this franchise. Normally I talk about the cast late into my reviews, but for this film I need to mention it right away. Harrison Ford is beyond awesome in this, even after all these years. He's always been one of my top 3 favorite actors, and he did not let me down in this film. Harrison Ford steals the show in every scene he's in. He is the embodiment of this character, and I think this film did Indy justice. It felt like Mangold knew exactly what people loved about this character, why he stayed around for years, and what makes an Indiana Jones movie entertaining and thrilling from beginning to end. And the prologue was what proved this for me. While the CGI they did to de-age Harrison Ford was distracting at first, in fact the CGI throughout the film doesn't look that great. But once I put that aside, all I could notice was just how strong his direction was during that scene, how solid the writing and dialogue was, and how just like Spielberg, the entire sequence linked up perfectly to the score. It was one of those moments when watching a film where I knew right away, they got the right guy and I was in for a good time. Speaking of the score, John Williams has not lost his touch. The music in this film is enthralling and gives every action sequence that special touch that only he can bring to the table. The action sequences in general were very well done. They're fast-paced, never dull, and just so much fun to watch. I think Mangold's direction over these scenes allows them to feel like they're ripped straight out of a classic adventure movie. And aside from the rough CGI and lighting in a few areas, I think this film looks amazing. The entire production design looked great in my opinion. From the recreations of the 1960s, the locations Indy visits throughout the adventure, and the tombs they go to. The film also has a great use of distortion, grit, and anamorphic lenses that make so many scenes look beautiful, and I couldn't take my eyes off the screen. There are also really strong emotional moments in this film, and while I wish the movie didn't undo the events of Crystal Skull just to have some of them, I thought they were pretty effective nonetheless. It's also a very funny movie. While the dialogue is as sharp as Spielberg's, the humor still worked for me, and there were many interactions between the characters that had a certain humorous charm to them. I do think the film went on for a little too long by the end. I think at this point I'm starting to get a little tired of every movie having to be nearly 3 hours long. But thankfully the movie is consistently well paced, and I never felt the long runtime until the final few scenes. There was also one decision during the 3rd act that didn't work for me. I won't go into spoiler territory, but while I didn't mind the direction they took it once you consider how the other Indiana Jones movies ended, there was one character choice that felt like wasted potential for a more effective ending. But in general, I did like the way the movie ended and where it left Indy. As mentioned, Harrison Ford is the best part of the movie, and he's most likely going to be the main reason why someone would want to see this film. You could feel the love he has for the audience in his performance, and while I wish this film didn't completely erase the ending he got in Crystal Skull, I loved his whole arc in this movie. The film does acknowledge Ford's age, but that has never held against him. He is still capable of going on an adventure even if he's not being thrown around, and he still has that lovable personality we all expect from an adventurous guy like him. Unfortunately, that leads me to one of my biggest problems with the film. Since Indy is the one we're all coming to see and the one getting all the development and emotional moments, we don't get a lot of time to flesh out the sidekicks in this movie, and they end up being pretty boring and forgettable as a result. Phoebe Waller-Bridge is very good in the movie, even if I think her chemistry with Indy could have been better. On the other end, Mads Mikkelsen is terrific in this film. It feels like a tradition to have him play a villain in almost every franchise up to this point, but I don't mind at all because he's so entertaining in everything I've seen him in. Antonio Banderas is also in this film, and even though he didn't get a lot of screen time, I loved him in this. I'm so glad he's been making a comeback recently between this, Puss in Boots, and Uncharted. While Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny never reaches Spielberg's sense of wonder and childlike adventure, James Mangold is able to keep the excitement, thrills, and charm of the franchise alive and well with a great sense of humor, strong emotional core, fun action sequences, and Harrison Ford proving why he's the legendary actor we know him as today. Again, I don't think this is a perfect movie, and in terms of where I'd rank this with the other Indiana Jones films, it might be my least favorite, but I'd be lying if I said I did not enjoy this one. Obviously, I would not recommend going into this film expecting a masterpiece on the same level as Raiders, Last Crusade, or Temple of Doom, but if you're willing to lower your expectations and accept that this is not going to be an instant classic, you'll have a good time with it. It's not a perfect movie, but it's far from awful in my opinion, and it shows a clear love for these movies that have shaped my life. Really, it's some of the most fun I've had watching a movie all summer, and seeing a new Indiana Jones Adventures in theaters that shows this kind of respect is more than satisfying. I'm going to give Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny a 7 out of 10. So those are my thoughts on Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. If you haven't seen the film yet, I'd recommend seeing it in theaters. Personally, I don't think it deserves to bomb at all. If you have seen the film though, feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear what other people thought about this one. Thanks for watching. If you like this review and you want to see more, be sure to support the channel by hitting the subscribe button, liking the video, and ringing that notification bell to be notified for any upcoming reviews.
But I've been looking for this